real question is, what created the circumstances that caused this individual to be under the impression that, one, they could commit such a crime, and that it would be okay to commit this crime? Because you have to understand, this crime was a response, a reaction to something. So what was the shooter, the criminal, the individual, what was their motivation? Now we hear people talking about um, the Israelis being behind it. We hear all these ridiculous things. Let me tell you, the Israelis had nothing to do with this. Netanyahu had nothing to do with this. Um, that's silly. And people will run and chase those types of conspiracies because they have nothing better to do. They don't know what to do. So they do the first thing that they deem to be normal, and that is for them, and that is to chase these wild conspiracies, to look immediately for someone to blame it on, some individual, some entity, without really taking the time to look into the situation and use common sense logic. You see, there's a pattern that has been established here in the United States recently, a pattern of people that are from the so-called LGBTQ transgender community committing crimes, in particular murder. These people have concluded that it is now in their best interest in this point in time in their movement to use force, to use murder. These people, who are a very big part of the whole Antifa movement, and you can see plenty of video and images of Antifa people wearing the so-called LGBTQ rainbow colors and flags and signs and symbols and so on and so forth. Um, and they've become quite radical. You know, the LGBTQ community has blended itself into this whole Antifa movement, or vice versa. I don't know, but what I'm telling you is this: Charlie Kirk was murdered by the left, by leftists. In particular, when you narrow this down, he was murdered by obviously someone from the so-called LGBTQ community. Now, this community is a very dangerous community, and they've shown themselves recently to be willing to murder. If you look at Nashville, the school shooting there, if you look at the school shooting in Minneapolis, Minnesota recently, and if you look at the Charlie Kirk murder, it's obviously that individual as well was a part of that so-called community. Now, how have we gotten to the point to where these people in this community have now concluded that if you don't accept their lifestyle, if you don't accept their choices, if you don't bow down to their community and what they believe, they have concluded that it's okay to assassinate you, to murder you. That's become obvious. Look at their targets: church schools and churches, because they know, and I'm speaking of Nashville and Minneapolis, they know that Christ rejects their lifestyle. They know that Christ rejects their lifestyle, and they know that when individuals come out and they speak against their lifestyle, they're coming from the premise of the scriptures. This isn't a situation where individuals are just speaking out against this transgender lifestyle and this homosexual lifestyle just because. This is biblically based. And that's where the objection to the transgender and homosexual community and lifestyle is coming from. So it makes sense for them to attack the source, and the source is Christ. The source is Genesis through Revelations, and the primary target, if you're disgruntled with Christ, would be a church, and the people that happen to be attending that church, and we've seen that happen here more and more recently. And I can assure you that the media will suppress this as they have done. They will continue to suppress this as much as possible. And they will even go so far as to try and convince us that when we want to identify these murderers from the LGBTQ community, that we are somehow now discriminating against them for pointing out that which is obvious. You know, there's no longer accountability, and let me tell you, you cannot hold people from the LGBTQ or transgender community accountable. You cannot hold Black women accountable, and for the most to a degree, you can't hold the Black community accountable for much of anything, because this what I call the new civil rights movement has created all these barriers of protection for these groups. And also, I would like to add into that group are the people that have erroneously been identified as people of color. Now, these are non-Negroid people. These are individuals that obviously have color, but they're not Negroid. So they could be from India, or they could be from Asia. Well, India is in Asia, but you get my point. And these people have been labeled, they could be South Americans. These people have been labeled people of color. They were given this term was assigned to them, this term, people of color, was assigned to them so that Black Americans, who were the original civil rights movement in America, would embrace them so that they could be included, and so that we would not raise an eyebrow and question the insertion of these people who are not indigenous and who did not go through the experiences that Black Americans went through throughout the middle civil rights movement. So that's how they incorporated them into our movement.